The shuttle landed with a low hum on the red sand of Outpost X9, a small human colony on the edge of known space. People gathered near the docking bay, curious about the new arrival. When the shuttle doors opened, they gasped. Out stepped Soraya, a tall, towering figure unlike anything they had seen before. She was 12 feet tall, her silver-blue skin glowing under the twin suns. Her long limbs moved with care, and her violet eyes looked down at the humans with a mix of wonder and fear. Soraya was a Valari, a powerful alien species known for their great strength and massive size. But Soraya didn't feel powerful. She felt out of place. She had come to this planet for peace, far from the war zones that had scarred her homeworld. But as she walked through the colony, she noticed the way people looked at her, with fear not welcome. Mothers pulled their children away, workers stopped talking when she passed, some even turned their backs. Soraya kept her head down. She had felt this before. On every planet she had visited, people feared her size. They thought she would break things, destroy things, hurt them without meaning to. Even back home she had been called too much, too big, too dangerous. She had stopped trying to explain herself. Now she just stayed quiet. Not far from the landing area, Eli Winters sat on a metal crate eating a protein bar and checking data on his tablet. He was a human engineer, mid-30s, known for fixing things no one else could. He didn't care much for gossip or politics. He liked machines more than people. But when he looked up and saw Soraya for the first time, something in his mind clicked. She wasn't like the others. She moved differently, carefully, like someone trying not to break the world around her. He watched her for a while, curious. Later that day, Soraya walked alone through the colony's market area. No one spoke to her. Children pointed, but their parents quickly pulled them away. She stopped near a fruit stall, reached for a bright red fruit, and then pulled her hand back. The vendor didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes said, "Enough." She turned away, her shoulders heavy with sadness. Then came the accident. A loud crack echoed through the colony. People screamed. A support beam at the spaceport's repair base snapped. A heavy cargo loader began to fall. A small child, no older than 6, stood frozen beneath it. Without thinking, Soraya moved. Her long legs carried her across the yard in seconds. She threw herself between the child and the falling machine, catching the beam with both arms. The weight was massive, even for her. But she held firm, letting the child crawl away to safety. A group of colonists rushed to the scene. The moment they saw her holding the beam, they jumped to the wrong conclusion. "It's the alien," someone shouted. "She caused it." "Keep her away from the kids." Soraya slowly placed the beam on the ground and stepped back. Her hands trembled, not from effort but from pain. Not physical pain, but the pain of being judged unfairly again. She didn't say a word. She turned and walked away, her head low. Eli had seen everything, from the moment the beam cracked to the way Soraya saved the child he had watched from the upper walkway. He knew the loader had been unstable for days. He had filed a report about it, but no one listened. Now they were blaming Soraya. He couldn't stay silent. That evening, Eli walked to the outer edge of the colony, where Soraya sat alone on a rocky hill looking at the stars. "I saw what you did," he said, standing a few feet away. Soraya didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the sky. "You saved that kid. You didn't cause the collapse." She looked at him slowly. Her voice when she spoke was deep and gentle. "It doesn't matter. They've already decided who I am." Eli stepped closer. "Maybe they have, but I haven't." There was silence. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small metal bridge crafted from old spare parts. He handed it to her. "I made this when I was 10, he said. "I was always building things. My dad said I had a habit of connecting things that didn't belong together." Soraya held the tiny bridge in her hand. It looked like a toy in her palm. "You're not here to break things," Eli said. "You're here to build something new. They just don't see it yet." Soraya blinked, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Not with kindness, not with hope. Far behind them, in the dark corners of the colony, someone watched from a shadowed control room, eyes narrowed, fingers typing rapidly on a screen. A message blinked on the display. The tall ones fall first. Whispers in the dust night fell over Outpost X9, but the colony didn't sleep. News of the spaceport accident had spread like fire in dry grass. People whispered in hushed tones. Parents double-locked their doors. Security drones hovered lower than usual, scanning every corner, and at the heart of the storm, Soraya sat alone in the darkness, just like always. She stared at the tiny metal bridge Eli had given her. It was such a small thing, yet it felt like a piece of hope. Maybe even trust. Her eyes blinked slowly as memories flooded her mind. She had once dreamed of bridges, between worlds, between hearts. But everywhere she went, bridges collapsed under the weight of her size. Or worse, under the weight of fear. She tucked the little gift into a pouch on her side and looked out at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Valari homeworld spun cold and alone. She hadn't been back in years, and she didn't plan to. Back in the main colony, Eli Winters sat alone in the engineering bay, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. He couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He reviewed the surveillance logs, frame by frame. The cargo loader's support cables hadn't snapped on their own. They had been cut. Clean, precise. It was sabotage, and someone wanted Soraya to take the blame. Why? He muttered to himself. She's done nothing. A soft beep interrupted him. A message flashed across the screen. Stop digging, Winters. You're playing with fire. No sender, no signature. Just cold, digital silence. Eli leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Someone was watching. Someone didn't want the truth exposed. But now, Eli wanted answers more than ever. The next day, Soraya stayed hidden beyond the colony's outer border, in the rocky flats where machines rarely patrolled. She didn't want to face the humans again, not after the way they had looked at her. But something strange caught her eye. Footprints. Not human. Not Valari. Heavy, wide, with sharp heel indentations. She crouched and studied them. They led toward a nearby communications tower, one long deactivated due to solar interference. No one had touched it in months. Soraya followed the tracks. As she approached the base of the tower, she noticed a panel ripped open. Not forced, but surgically removed. Inside, a small black device blinked. A transmitter. Her heart thumped. Someone had been sending secret messages. She reached toward the device, but suddenly, a loud shriek cut through the air. A sharp electric burst hit her side. She staggered, back growling in pain. From the shadows, a cloaked figure stood holding a high-frequency shock rifle. He didn't say a word. He aimed again. Soraya dodged, grabbed a large stone and threw it. It hit the figure's arm, knocking the rifle free. But the stranger didn't fight. Instead, he activated a small teleporter disc on his wrist and vanished. Gone. Like dust in the wind, Soraya stood breathing heavily, a slight burn on her ribs. She picked up the rifle. No markings. Nothing to trace. Whoever this was, they didn't just fear her. They wanted her removed. That night, Eli visited her again. This time, she didn't hide the truth. I found a transmitter, she said, her voice serious. Someone is sending signals off-world, someone who doesn't want me here. Eli's face darkened. I believe you. Someone cut the loader's cables, I saw it in the logs. Their eyes met. Two minds. Two worlds. One mystery. But why frame you? Eli asked. Soraya looked away. The Valari. We were weapons once. We were trained for war. Some people think we still are. But you're not, he said quickly. She smiled softly. Not anymore. Just then a distant explosion rumbled through the colony. Smoke rose from the north side. Both of them turned sharply. The water processing plant, Eli said. That's where the colony stores emergency reserves. Soraya stood at once. Someone is trying to destabilize this place. They ran. By the time they reached the plant, the scene was chaos. Fire crews battled rising flames. Civilians screamed. Security officers ran in circles. And on the far wall of the plant, sprayed in glowing red paint, were words that chilled Eli to the bone. No monsters allowed. Soraya stared at the message. For a moment she said nothing. Then she turned to Eli. I'm not the danger here, she said quietly. But if I don't stop this, they'll all believe I am. Eli nodded. Then we'll find the truth together. Behind them, hidden in the smoke and shadows, the cloaked figure watched once more. He tapped a comm piece on his neck. She's working with the human now, he whispered. Initiate Phase 2. The weight of secrets. A faint orange glow lingered over Outpost X9 as emergency crews battled the last embers of the explosion. Water still dripped from damaged tanks, forming thin rivers that reflected the firelight. The message on the wall, "No monsters allowed," glowed like a scar across the heart of the colony. But the real fire now burned inside Soraya. She watched from the shadows, high above the colony on a ridge of stone. Her huge form, though built for war, stayed crouched like a frightened animal. It wasn't the explosion that shook her, it was the message. Everywhere she went, people saw her kind as threats. The Volari were strong, yes, massive, yes, but that didn't make them monsters. Not all of them. Not her. She clenched her fists and turned away from the chaos. Below, Eli Winters slipped through the crowd, his security badge flashing at checkpoints. No one noticed the small data stick he slipped into his wrist comm. He had a plan. That night, Soraya waited behind the abandoned mining dome, where humans rarely ventured. When Eli arrived, his clothes were dirty and his face tense. I downloaded security feeds, he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. You were nowhere near the water plant when it exploded, but someone altered the logs. Framing me. Again, she said. He nodded. But they made a mistake. He pulled up a blurred image from the data. The shadowy figure from before, still cloaked, still hiding. But this time, there was a reflection in a broken pipe near the explosion. The face was partly visible. Human Soraya leaned closer. Someone from the colony. Someone with access, Eli confirmed. And they want people to fear you. She was silent for a moment, then, they want war. Eli blinked. What do you mean? She stood slowly, towering over him, but no longer seeming dangerous, just tired. The Volari War ended 20 years ago, she explained. Our empire fell, but not everyone wanted peace. Some Volari went underground. So did some humans who hated peace with us. Eli frowned. You think this is about starting another war? I think someone is trying to provoke a fight, using me as the spark. Suddenly a drone flew past overhead. A security drone. They ducked behind a steel wall. It's a patrol, Eli whispered. They're looking for you. Soraya's eyes narrowed. Then I can't hide anymore. Before Eli could protest, she stepped into the open. The drone beeped, flashed red, and activated the alert beacon. Within minutes, human guards surrounded her, weapons raised. Soraya didn't move. Her arms were down. Her face calm. I didn't. Destroy the plant, she said, her voice echoing across the concrete. But someone here did. One soldier stepped forward, Captain Harrow. Tall, grizzled, eyes like glass. Eli had seen him before. He was head of security, and he did not like aliens. We've had enough of your lies, Harrow growled. You think just because you saved one child we should trust you? I'm not your enemy, Soraya said. Then you won't mind coming with us. Eli stepped forward. Wait, she's innocent. Harrow raised a hand. Back off, Winters. This freak's going into containment until Central Command arrives. Eli's fists tightened. You're making a mistake. No, Harrow said, eyes locked on Soraya. I'm cleaning up one. They took her away in heavy-grade restraint cuffs, designed for mining bots. She didn't resist. Not yet. Eli stood, frozen as the transport flew off, its lights disappearing into the dusty night. But inside the shadows of the hangar roof, another figure watched the whole scene unfold. A woman, pale hair, black visor, soft smile. She tapped her comlink. They have captured the Volari. Begin the distraction protocol. Soraya sat in a reinforced containment cell, deep under the security base. The walls were thick. The cameras watched every move, but her thoughts drifted, back in time, to her sister Enya, to the last day they saw each other. They had disagreed. Soraya believed in peace. Enya didn't. Enya believed strength was the only truth, that humans would always fear Volari. Enya had disappeared into the stars. Now, all these years later, Soraya was being treated exactly the way her sister had predicted. She closed her eyes. Was Enya right? Then something beeped. Her eyes opened. The cameras blinked, then went black. The lights flickered. And then, the wall exploded. From the smoke stepped two shapes, one human, one not. The first was Eli, helmet on, holding a stolen clearance, badge and a datapad full of override codes. The second, a young Volari male leaner than Soraya with markings across his skin. Name's Kale, the alien said. I believe we have a common enemy. Soraya stood, stunned. You're Volari. Kale nodded. And not the only one. Someone is trying to wake the war. We need you, Soraya, before it's too late. A shadow, beneath the stars smoke, still hung in the air as Soraya stepped out of the broken wall of her containment cell. The floor beneath, her feet was cracked, scattered with metal and dust. Behind her, the alarm screamed like dying machines. But Soraya wasn't running. She was thinking. Eli stood beside her, sweat on his forehead and a datapad clutched tightly in his hands. His breathing was fast, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. He believed in her. He had risked everything. And now a second Volari stood with them. Kyle. He was young, maybe half her age in Volari years, but the fire in his eyes was ancient. His skin was marked with battle sigils, and his presence brought a strange tension into the space between them. Familiar, yet dangerous. We don't have long, Kyle said. Your escape will trigger lockdown in under 5 minutes. Soraya looked at him, voice low. Who are you really? Kyle glanced at Eli. I'll explain on the way, but we can't stay here. They moved fast, through underground tunnels Eli had mapped from old blueprints. Most were no longer in use, abandoned after the mining colony shifted its operations. Now they were lifelines. As they moved, Kyle explained, I was part of a Volari sleeper cell, planted here years ago, he said. But I turned against them when I learned their plan. What plan? Eli asked. Kale's face darkened. To make you, Soraya, the face of a false attack. To blame you for something you didn't do. To spark fear, rage, war. Soraya's steps slowed. They want to restart the war? Kyle nodded. But it's worse than you know. They're working with humans. Eli stopped cold. You're saying Volari warhawks and human extremists are working together? Kale gave a grim nod. They both want the same thing. Chaos. A reason to destroy the fragile peace. A reason to build new weapons. More power. More control. Soraya's mind reeled. She had believed peace was possible. That if she were kind, calm, and careful, humans would see her heart. Instead, they saw a threat. Now she understood she wasn't just a scapegoat, she was a symbol, a target meant to ignite a galaxy-wide fire. Suddenly, the tunnel ahead lit up red. An explosion tore through the wall, blasting Eli backward. Debris flew. Soraya leapt in front of him, shielding his body with her own massive frame. The shockwave passed and Kale pulled them behind a support beam. 3 soldiers stepped through the smoke, not official security. Their armor was unmarked. Their eyes, cold. Non-lethal rounds, one of them said. But shoot to disable, Aim for the human. First, Eli's eyes widened. They're not trying to kill us. They want us alive. Worse, Kale whispered. They want us to confess. Soraya stood to her full height. She stepped forward slowly, towering in the smoke, her massive shadow cutting through the firelight. I didn't want to fight, she said calmly. The soldiers raised their weapons. But I will. With a thunderous leap, Soraya struck the ceiling. Steel cracked and collapsed, cutting off the attackers. She grabbed Eli and Kale and ran deeper into the tunnels, dust and flame chasing their heels. They emerged in an old hangar, rusted, dark, forgotten. Kale slammed a switch. Hidden lights flickered on, revealing a small shuttle, barely space-worthy. This was my emergency exit, he said. Now it's our only shot. Eli checked the systems. It'll fly, but barely. Where are we going? Kyle looked at Soraya. We need to find the echo node. Soraya narrowed her eyes. That's a myth. No, Kale replied. It's real. A hidden data archive, holding proof of the conspiracy. Names, footage, messages, everything. If we get it, Eli said slowly, we can expose them. Kale nodded. And save more than just this colony. We save peace itself. Soraya stepped onto the shuttle. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing. She couldn't keep hiding. She had tried to be silent, to be small, to be gentle. But now the galaxy needed her strength, not to destroy, but to protect. She looked down at Eli, then at Kyle. We fly tonight, she said. But we're not running. We're going to end this. Far above, in a sleek space station orbiting the colony, Captain Harrow watched the security feed go dark. He turned to a woman standing behind him, the same pale-haired woman who had ordered the distraction. She escaped, Harrow said bitterly. The woman smiled. She's going exactly where we want her to go. Echoes on the dead moon. The shuttle shook violently as it pierced the atmosphere of a long-abandoned moon called Virella, once a mining outpost, now a forgotten husk drifting through the void. Rusted satellites floated nearby, lifeless eyes that once watched over trade ships and cargo routes. Eli gripped the edge of his seat. We're coming in too fast, I know, Soraya said, her deep voice calm but focused. She had taken the pilot's seat after Kale collapsed from an old injury aggravated during their escape. His left side was burned and his breath came in sharp bursts, but he had insisted they continue. We can't stop now, Kyle had whispered. The echo node is here, beneath the mine shafts, but not everyone who looks for it survives. The shuttle hit the ground with a violent skid, throwing dust and shattered rocks into the sky. The landing gear groaned, but they were alive. Barely. They stepped out into the ruins. The landscape was bleak. Towers of abandoned steel, silent machines half buried in ash, and pipelines like skeletons stretching across the horizon. The air was thin. The silence, unnatural. Soraya felt it in her bones. Not just decay, something was watching. They made their way to Shaft D9. According to Kale, that's where the echo node was hidden. You said not everyone survives. Why? Eli asked. Kyle looked down the black tunnel. Because the ones who buried the truth didn't want it found. They left traps, drones, and worse. Eli swallowed hard. Soraya moved first. Her size made the space tight, but her strength made her a living shield. She moved with precision, every step a calculated choice. They passed warning signs in faded languages. Restricted, Class 3 AI monitoring active, evacuation mandatory, and finally, do not awaken the watcher. They descended, deeper. The air grew colder. The light from Eli's tablet flickered. Suddenly, a sharp clang echoed from above. Eli spun around. What was that? Kale raised his weapon. We're not alone. Soraya narrowed her eyes and crouched, ready for battle. Out of the shadows, a shape emerged, not human, not Valari. It looked like a fusion of machine and alien. Twisted metal, arms like spider legs, and a head split with 3 blinking red eyes. The Watcher, a forgotten guardian of the Echo Node. It screeched and launched forward. Soraya didn't hesitate. She slammed into the creature, crashing them both into a wall of steel. The tunnel shook. Sparks flew. The Watcher lashed out with bladed limbs, slicing into her shoulder. She roared, grabbing the limb and ripping it clean off. But it didn't stop. It turned its red eyes to Eli and Kale. "Go!" Soraya shouted, blood running down her arm. "Find the node!" Eli ran, Kale limping behind. Soraya stayed. She didn't just fight, she unleashed. She slammed the Watcher into the ground again and again, the shockwaves echoing through the shaft. But it wasn't enough. The Watcher regenerated, welding itself back together. This wasn't a security bot. It was a learning machine. With each attack it grew faster, smarter. Soraya was tiring. But she remembered something Eli once said. A weakness isn't always in strength. Sometimes it's in the pattern. She looked around. The ceiling above the Watcher was lined with fuel pipes, ancient, likely unstable. With her last ounce of strength, she grabbed a broken panel and threw it like a spear. The pipes erupted in fire. The Watcher screamed and vanished in the blaze. Meanwhile, Eli and Kale reached the heart of the mine, a metal chamber surrounded by alien tech and human wiring. At its center sat a black cube humming with hidden power, the Echo Node. Kale scanned it. "It's encrypted. But I know the key," he whispered. "My mentor built this. He died trying to protect it." The cube activated and projections filled. The chamber. Video feeds, messages, names. Human generals, Valari warlords, secret meetings. Proof of the alliance. Proof of the false flag attack they planned on the human capital world. Proof. Soraya was meant to be the trigger. But just as they prepared to upload the data, a voice boomed through the chamber. "I knew you'd come here, Kale." It was Captain Harrow. He stepped through a hidden entrance, weapon drawn. Behind him, 5 armed soldiers in stealth armor. "You were always the traitor," Harrow said coldly. "And you brought the beast with you." Eli stepped forward. "She saved a child. You blamed her. You tried to break peace for your power." Harrow smiled. "Peace is an illusion. War builds empires." A click echoed. Kale had his weapon aimed at Harrow. Harrow didn't flinch. "Shoot me, and they kill both of you," he said. Kale gritted, his teeth. That's when the floor behind them exploded. Soraya stormed through the wall, flames dancing behind her like wings. Her eyes locked on Harrow. He turned, stunned. "You should be dead," he gasped. "I've tried to be many things," Soraya said, towering above him, face bruised and blood dripping down her arm. "Dead isn't one of them." With one swipe, she disarmed him. The soldiers raised their guns, but Eli had activated the Echo Node's security override. The room flooded with magnetic pulses. Guns jammed. Lights exploded. Soraya grabbed Harrow by his collar. "This ends now." Shadows of betrayal, smoke, and sparks danced around them in the aftermath of the skirmish. Harrow was unconscious, slumped in Soraya's hand like a discarded doll. His soldiers lay disabled, twitching and groaning from the pulse blast that Eli had triggered. The Echo Node pulsed softly, its glowing surface rippling with secrets. Kyle moved quickly, inserting a coded drive into the core. "I'm uploading everything. Once it's live, the Alliance will have no choice but to halt the invasion plans." "Where will the signal go?" Soraya asked, still watching Harrow, her massive figure looming like a mountain over the fallen man. "Every public node from here to Orion Prime, news networks, civilian archives, even black market forums," Kale replied. "It won't be buried again." But just as the upload began, a voice crackled through the chamber speakers. "Kale, Eli, Soraya, you've done well to come this far, but we always planned for this." The voice was female, cold, commanding. Soraya's eyes narrowed. "I know that voice." A figure flickered into the air. Holographic. Commander Lissari Velar. Velari. Her armor shimmered with authority. bearing the seal of the High Council of Valara. Soraya's breath caught. "Mother," she whispered. Eli and Kale turned sharply. "That's your—" "Yes." Lysari's image leaned forward, eyes like ice. "You were always meant to be a symbol, Soraya, not a soldier, not a diplomat, a weapon, and, excuse, your existence was convenient." Soraya's fists clenched. "You sent me away," she said. "You were never going to fit our plans, but now that the human fool has exposed the node, we'll spin the story our way, paint you all as rogue agents, discredit the data, and when Valari warships strike Earth's colonies, no one will believe your version." The upload progress bar on Kale's device glitched. "She's trying to block the signal," Kale shouted. "She has override codes." Soraya turned to Eli. "There's only one way to beat her at her own game." He looked up. "How?" "We don't just send data. We send a message." Minutes later, in a chamber glowing with transmission pulses, Soraya stepped into the spotlight. A camera drone hovered before her. Eli adjusted the controls. "Go live. Say it from the heart. Make the galaxy listen." Soraya looked into the lens. "I am Soraya Velar," she began, her voice low but unwavering. "Daughter of Commander Lysari, soldier of the Valari people, and a believer in peace." She paused, the silence speaking louder than her words. "I was born into strength but taught to hide my heart, taught to crush, not to care. But then I met humans, and one of them, Eli Winters, showed me that power isn't measured in destruction, but in compassion." The transmission beamed across. Networks, screens, spaceports, civilian hubs, people across galaxies leaned in. I was framed to ignite war, but I stand now to prevent it. The truth is in the echo node. I beg you, look. Judge for yourselves. She finished with a whisper. Let us not be monsters built by fear. Let us be builders of something new. The feed cut silence. Then, Kale's screen flashed green. Upload complete. But before they could celebrate, a roar of engines echoed above. Outside, the skies of Varela burned. Valari warships had arrived. Their invasion had already begun. "We're out of time," Kyle yelled. "We need to get back to the shuttle," but before they could move, explosions rocked the mine shaft. The exit collapsed in a cloud of dust. They were trapped. In the chaos, Soraya noticed something. A secondary tunnel, half buried. "I saw this on the schematics," Eli said. "A service shaft, it leads to an old launch site." With no choice, they descended deeper. As they moved, Kale lagged behind. "Wait," Eli said, frowning. "Where's your bag?" Kale didn't answer. "Kale?" Soraya turned. But the moment they reached the surface, Kale activated a beacon. Valari drones swooped in instantly. "You betrayed us?" Eli choked. Kyle's face twisted in regret. "I made a deal. I thought if I gave them the node's location, they'd let me live. But they want you all dead." Soraya stepped forward, her eyes full of fire. "They lied." "I know," Kyle whispered. "I was desperate." The drones fired. Soraya shielded Eli with her massive form, taking 2 hits to her back. She stumbled but didn't fall. Instead, she grabbed Kale's beacon and crushed it in her hand, the explosion lighting up the sky. "Run!" she shouted. Eli dragged Kale with him toward the old launch bay, barely escaping as more drones descended. At the launch bay, they found a derelict escape pod. Ancient but functional, Soraya shoved the doors open and placed Kale gently inside. He was unconscious, barely breathing. Eli fired up the engine. The pod trembled. "Will it fly?" Soraya asked. "We'll find out in 3, 2, 1. Blast off." The pod rocketed from the moon's surface as Valari warships circled like vultures. But by the time they noticed, it was too late. The data was already out, the message already sent. Part 7. Preview. Hearts Made of Stars. As the galaxy reels from Soraya's broadcast, reactions ripple across systems. Protests erupt. Valari High Council scrambles to contain the fallout. Earth prepares for a last stand. Defense. But Soraya and Eli aren't done. Now fugitives and heroes, they head to the Galactic Assembly, where Soraya must stand trial or spark a revolution. And in the shadows, Lisari prepares her final move. The bridge between two worlds has been built. Now it must survive the storm. Hearts made of stars. The stars streaked past the viewport as the escape pod drifted through hyperspace. Eli sat at the controls, sweat beading on his brow, flicking between manual settings. The pod was ancient, barely spaceworthy, and the fuel cells were draining fast. Soraya knelt in the cramped rear cabin beside Kale, who lay pale and unconscious. "He's stabilizing," she said softly. Her giant hand, bruised and trembling, rested gently beside his head. "But he won't make another jump." Eli looked over his shoulder. "We'll reach the assembly outpost in 3 hours. If we're lucky, they won't shoot us on sight." "They'll be looking for traitors," Soraya said. "But maybe they'll find truth instead." Meanwhile, across the stars. In systems from Earth's colonies to Valara's moons, Soraya's message played over and over. Her words, full of heartbreak, power, and humanity, sparked a movement that no one expected. Valari youth began questioning the Council. Human civilians flooded forums demanding peace. The media dubbed Soraya the Bridgewalker, the one who crossed between two civilizations once destined for war. But not everyone celebrated. At Valari High Command, Commander Lisari stood in a dark chamber, watching the swirling holograms of Valari warships. "She has ruined everything," one general barked. "She has unified the humans against us," hissed another. But Lisari was calm. "Then we will remind them why the Valari are feared. Begin Operation Duskfire." "But the girl, your daughter," she made her choice. 3 hours later, Galactic Assembly Border Zone. Eli guided the battered escape pod toward Asphera 9, the last neutral outpost before deep assembly space. Alarms blared. A voice boomed over the comms. "Unidentified vessel. Power down and prepare for boarding." "We're out of options," Eli muttered. Soraya rose to her full height, barely fitting in the pod. "Let them board. We'll talk to them face to face." Minutes later, the hatch hissed open. Assembly peacekeepers entered, with rifles raised, then froze when they saw her. "By the stars," one whispered. "It's her." The Assembly Tribunal. 1 day later, broadcast live across hundreds of systems, Soraya stood alone before the Galactic Tribunal. 1,000 alien races watched: humans, Valari, and countless others. Eli and Kale sat behind a glass barrier, unable to speak, their fate tied to hers. A tall, hawk-eyed alien named Marshal Phoenix, head of the tribunal, stood. "You are accused of espionage, sabotage, and endangering interstellar peace." Soraya met his gaze. "And I stand guilty of loving a people I was told to hate." Gasps echoed. She stepped forward, her voice resonant and clear. "You've seen my message. You know what the Council planned. You know what they did to my father, to my people, to your peace. We were never the monsters. They wanted you to believe I was one, so they could become what they feared most." The chamber fell silent. Marshal Phoenix's eyes narrowed. "And what do you want now?" "A chance," Soraya said, "for the galaxy to choose truth." The verdict hours passed. The verdict loomed. The galaxy held its breath. Then, by vote of the tribunal, Soraya Velar is cleared of all charges. Further, an official investigation into Valari High Command is hereby initiated. The chamber erupted in noise. Eli leaped up and raced to her. She knelt to meet him, eyes full of something rare in her people: hope. But it wasn't over yet. Back on Valara, Lisari watched the verdict. She didn't flinch. "Activate Duskfire now," she said. Across multiple star systems, cloaked warships moved into position, and then, suddenly, they stopped. Their systems were offline. Override blocked. shouted a technician. Someone hacked the root AI. Lisari spun around. On her screen, a symbol blinked. E. Winters. Protocol breach initiated. Flashback, 24 hours earlier. While Soraya stood trial, Eli had broken into the assembly archives. He didn't just want justice, he wanted insurance. And he'd found it. Valari fleet control codes, hidden deep in the assembly's forgotten war logs. Kale had helped him override them. Now the fleet stood still. Back to the present. Eli's voice cut into Valari command frequencies. This is Eli Winters. If you don't stand down, your entire fleet will be decommissioned permanently. You wanted war. But Soraya built a bridge. I just made sure you couldn't blow it up. Peace or war? Back at the tribunal, new orders spread fast. The Valari Council was suspended. Lisari arrested by her own people. Across the stars, peace talks resumed. Soraya became not just a hero but a symbol. And in a quiet moment on a green human colony, she walked hand in hand with Eli along a mountain ridge, where no one feared her size, her power, or her past. She looked at him and smiled. I thought I'd crush anyone who got close. Eli smiled back. You didn't crush me. You lifted me. The end.